if you are actually intentional about mapping out your time, there's not a problem with taking a break.
That's right.
And having a free day, because how much waste do you have
Totally
during the day?
Yep. This is BetterWealth with Caleb Williams. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the BetterWealth Breakdown, where we break down ideas, concepts, and thoughts from around the world to help you live a more intentional life. And a while ago, Dan, you asked me just a random question on the podcast. We've actually got a couple people reaching out to us saying that was a really impactful episode. And so apparently you're wanting to keep the streak alive. I'm just hoping I have the right thing to say,
Here we go. Number 2. The question is, if you only had 1 hour per day to work on BetterWealth, what would you do in that time? So if you could only work 1 hour,
it's good.
What would you do?
Good question. So if I could only work 1 hour at BetterWealth, what would I do? Oh, wow. I would spend vision and making sure that vision was communicated to our team.
So every day you would focus on clarifying the vision, casting the vision, making sure that everybody's clear on what that is.
Yes.
Amazing. Why do you say that?
Well, because number one, if you think about, like, what I wanted to say is content and relationship building, which those would be what I would like to justify is, like, okay, the days that I'm not doing vision, I would be doing relationship building and content. Really, that falls under marketing, because I do believe that without marketing, nothing else matters, because if you have no demand, there's no need for the supply. But so that would be my second thing that I would say. But without vision, you could be building relationships and you could be marketing and running your mouth. But if I wasn't responsible for the vision, then we would ultimately be outsourcing the most intimate part of our job, intimate part of our business, intimate part of what we want to create in the world to, who knows, maybe the current trend, maybe someone else. And so I think my highest and best, if I had to boil it down to one thing, is to articulate the vision and really lead well in instead of doing, because if you only can do an hour a day, making sure that gets communicated and everyone's feeling equipped. And then the second thing is the marketing and building relationships. And so it'd be like that 1-2 punch.
Awesome. Well, and I like this question because it doesn't have to just be about business. It can be about your personal life. It could be about a lot of different things, relationships, you name it. Because it's like, if you only had 1 hour to work on yourself personally, like what would you do? Or in business, if you only had 1 hour to work in business, what would you do? And it causes you to really think, like, very, very hard on whether or not what you're doing currently is your highest and best use. And this idea can go a lot of different ways. What if there were only 6 days a week?
Yeah. Would
you get in all the things that you need to get done in those 6 days? Probably. Yeah. What if you only had 23 hours in the day?
Yeah.
And so it's just it's an interesting thought experiment to start thinking of, like, am I working on the wildly important? Am I working on that one thing that's most important? And am I leveraging my time most effectively?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good question, and I think it gets you to start thinking, because when if I ever want to, like, get things done, if I set a deadline, like if I need to go on a date with April and I say we're going to be done by 5, I somehow get everything done.
Yep.
Or one of the best things, I got to get a speech done or a talk done, and the deadline is when I walk on stage. I've never flopped on stage yet. Now, it's going to happen, but it's amazing how, like, you can get things done when you kind of put a line in the sand. And I just think a lot of people procrastinate on life, and I think today's a perfect example. To be totally frank, like, we didn't work as effective as we wanted to. Like, there was a lot of time that was like, but it's a weekend, right? So it's like we didn't really have a lot of things to, like, be pushing us, and we're making this when it's like historic snow in Denver, so everything's shut down, and it's kind of like, oh, we have a free day. And yet, if you actually look at what I did, I'll just put myself on the spot. I could probably have accomplished everything that I wanted to do in 3 hours. And, let's just say we're recording this at the end of the day, and it's just a good example to look at today and use that example.
Well, but also I will say in that example, yes, there's an historic blizzard outside. We have no internet right now. The power has been flicking on and off all day, but we haven't used that as an excuse not to do things.
Yeah.
We could have very easily
Yes.
said, well, the power might go off during this podcast, so we might as well just not do it. But here we are.
Yeah.
And that again is just like, it's just an audit of how are you using your time? Are you using it most effectively? And or, Dan Sullivan from Strategic Coach talks about free days, focus days, and buffer days.
Mm-hmm.
And what he's saying is mapping out your time. There's not a problem with taking a break.
That's right.
And having a free day, because how much waste do you have
Totally.
during the day?
Yep.
And that's basically what he's talking about, is squeezing time frames of, what if I only allowed you to work on your business 8 hours a day?
Yep.
Or 10 hours a day, pick a number.
Yep.
What would you do in the remaining time? Would you drive yourself crazy? What
Yeah.
What would you do?
Yeah. I think let me re-ask this to our audience. If you only had 1 hour a day, what would you spend it on? And I think the way that you answer that could tell you a lot about yourself, but it also could be an audit to, are you actually doing that because you have more than an hour in a day? I think that's also convicting. It's like, this is what I would do if I only had an hour a day, and am I actually doing it when I have 24 hours? Yeah. It's another thing that just is popping in my head here is, a lot of times we were talking about like unlimited access, and a lot of people don't take advantage of it because there's no like deadline. Whereas if you give someone a deadline, it's actually backfires in the world of like marketing and offers. If you say you have to get stuff done by this date, people end up getting it to you. But if you say lifetime access, it's sad, but like you get less people reach out to you because there's no deadline. And it's an interesting thought experiment, and it's an interesting question, and hopefully it has challenged one of you to be like, this is what I need to start doing.
Yeah, I think time is our most valuable resource, and we just need to continually be mindful and intentional with it.
Yeah. Just one last thing, because we're not good at ending podcasts around here, is someone asked me on a podcast the other day, they asked me, would you trade places with Warren Buffett? And I said no, and it's not even that wasn't even hard for me to answer that. Yeah. I have a ton of respect for Warren. If I could learn a fraction of what he's learned, like I think the world of him. But one thing that I have on Warren is time. And that is something like, if that sinks in, if you get what I'm saying, that sinks in, then you have to really put yourself at billionaire status, because I would not trade places with one of the richest men in the world today if I was given that opportunity. There's no way in the world I would. And so that tells you that your time is super valuable. Now, the sad reality is, I can say that. Majority of people would say that. Majority of people are hypocrites because they're not living that way.
Boom.
Thank you so much for listening to the BetterWealth podcast. It would mean the world to me if you could hit subscribe, leave a review, and share this with the people that you know and love.